Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there. This is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to The Jay Franzi Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to The Jay Franzi Show. A behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franzi.
Well, hello, and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franzi, and this is your backstage pass to the music industry. This week, we get to talk with a legendary band. We get to talk with Terry, Ray, and Billy, otherwise known as McBride The Ride. We'll talk to them about what it was like working with Nashville's producer Tony Brown, their time in the recording studio with Chuck Ainley, and we'll talk about some of the wild times that happened behind the scenes. Now, they are not only amazing musicians, they are truly country music legends, and I can't wait to talk with them tonight. So if you would like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jfranzi.com. Now, let's get started. Let's just start local Nashville. What was it like working with Tony Brown?
Oh, my goodness.
Like a dream come true for me.
Yeah, it was. All three of us. We all knew him previously, and so when he asked us to be a part of a band, we all, I think, jumped in. It was a pretty easy decision.
I knew Tony from playing with Lyle Lovett. We did Lyle's first record out here in Arizona, and you went to ASU, Jay, I understand.
I did, yes, sir.
There was a studio out here called Chaton Recording Studio, and the band I was with met Lyle in Luxembourg. Lyle was coerced to come here and do some sides and by the band and Billy Williams, and he did so. And we recorded those songs with him. And Tony Brown picked Lyle up and signed him to MCA. And the next year, Tony came out to Scottsdale and did these demos for the Pontiac record. And I got to play on all that stuff. And after a couple of years, I started touring with Lyle. And Tony gave me a call out of the blue when he found out that I wasn't going to tour with Lyle because I wanted to kind of pursue my own thing here and, do my own solo thing and write songs and all that stuff. And Tony said, "Man, I hear you're not going out with Lyle this summer." And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna kind of work on me. I've done Lyle a couple, 3-4 years at that point. I think I'll just work on my own career." And he said, "Well, man, let me tell you what I've been working on. I met a guy in Austin, Texas that I think has some songs that'd be a great direction for a band. And I thought of you, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for you. I know we want to do more than just be in Lyle's band." And I said, "Well, absolutely. This is Tony Brown calling me out of the blue." And I'd gotten to work with him on, some of the Lyle stuff and the Pontiac record and all that. So I knew his style and certainly respected him. And after that conversation, I said, "Well, count me in." And he said, "Well, are you going to go out with Lyle?" I said, "Well, yes, I will. I'll go out with Lyle this summer." I went with Lyle, and I met Terry that summer. And I remember we met at the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas, and Terry came to the show, and we hit it off. And we were very excited, youngins, to have this opportunity. Tony Brown calling us. And next thing I know, he flies Terry and I to Nashville. I was living in Arizona at the time. Flies Terry and I to Nashville. We meet Billy. Billy was part of Emmylou Harris's Hot Band and played with many other artists, but that's how Tony knew Billy. And he played on the Hillbilly Rock record and played with Vince Gill. So the three of us met, and we met a guy named Steve Fischel, who was the steel player. We got together in a rehearsal studio at SIR, played some of Terry's songs, great songs. We hit it off musically, and we found out that we had this 3-part harmony thing that was almost brotherly. And that was kind of just a bonus to the package. And Tony paraded a bunch of people in there to hear this first day of rehearsal. Literally, I think, guys, we rehearsed 3 hours, it seems like, maybe.
Yeah.
And we got 3 or 4 songs, including, I think, Can I Count on You and Every Step of the Way and maybe Felicia, I don't know. But we had these harmonies, and they just came naturally. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. Tony said, you guys have a deal if you want one, literally the first day. So working with Tony was just, a dream come true for me and the other guys, I'm sure, as well. So that's kind of how it started.
Well, I'd say Tony's one of the biggest producers in Nashville, but he's really one of the biggest producers in the world.
A lot of stuff, a lot of important stuff. Absolutely.
Just a little bit.
A career that's unmatched at this point. So.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, is Ray's, account of that time, is that accurate to you?
That's accurate for sure. Our paths crossed early on. I was playing with Delbert McClinton and Ray and some of the guys had come out to see Delbert before and had no idea we'd end up years later in this band. But yeah, met Ray in Austin, and then I was in Nashville, and Billy and I went over to Elliston Place, a cool old soda shop, and it was one of our first meetings, and before we jumped in and started rehearsing. But I actually got a rejection letter from Tony Brown. I was living in Lubbock. My friend Wally Moyers took some photos of me standing like this, like a goober, and I sent a cassette, and then I mailed it to Tony Brown. He was my favorite producer. He produced, Steve Earle's first record, Lyle's first record, worked with Patty Loveless, Steve Warner. The list just went on and on, not to mention Vince and everybody else at MCA. But so I got back the standard form rejection letter. It had the logo letterhead at the top.
Right.
And it was typed. At this particular time, we don't feel like you're the right fit or whatever it said. And then it was signed by Tony Brown. And at that point, that was the biggest thing that had ever happened to me in my life, was getting rejected.
Was being rejected.
Yeah. So I took that letter to Tony years later. I still had it. I still have it to this day. It's in like a scrapbook kind of thing, and there it is. But I was struggling. I was busy. I was active player, singer in Austin, and staying busy but starving. Just not making any. Left Delbert to pursue songwriting more in depth, and met a couple great songwriters in Austin, and that really changed everything for me. We started recording some cool tracks with cool people, our friends, wonderful players from Stephen Bruton to, we had a cast of characters and cutting it all over there at Arlen Studio, which is a great studio to this day in the old Austin Opera House building. And,
what was it like there?
It was just a hotbed. Eric Johnson had the studio around the corner, and he was in there all the time. And
who?
Stevie, and then Stevie Ray Vaughan would be over at Ray Henning's trying out amps and guitars. So Austin was a wonderful time to be alive and, making the rounds at that particular time. It was really a hotbed of stuff. The Fabulous Thunderbirds were really happening. And Bill Carter and Ruth Ellsworth kind of took me in. I got in a band out of leaving Delbert. I went and auditioned for this band called Bill Carter and the Blame. And Bill was getting ready to head out and do a Stevie Ray Vaughan tour opening. And I got the gig, and off we went, and touring with Stevie, one of my heroes, and it was just unbelievable, and got to know him and hang out and play. We'd come out and play Crossfire with him every night because Bill and Ruth co-wrote that song. And so we got off that tour. Bill and Ruth just took me in. They said, man, I like these demos. I played them some home demos, me playing bass, guitar, everything. They were just on a little 4-track cassette mixer. It was, oh my God.
Right, little Tascam.
Exactly what it was. And I was, trying my best to figure that out. And I had a friend that could kind of program some drums. It was horrible. But they said, man, we like your voice. We like these songs. Let's write some country stuff, and we did. And then that next trip after writing and recording a bunch of songs led us to Nashville and led us right to Tony Brown. We just caught him on the right day. He's like, man, I dig this. I'm going to come to Austin, and if you're the real deal, he said, I'm going to sign you to a record deal. And I went, oh, God, I hope I'm the real deal, whatever that is, because I'm tired of starving, So
right.
We hit it off much like what Ray and I did when we met. I hit it off with Tony. He's like, I'm going to sign you. And he had the idea for the band. Like Ray said, he knew Billy, and he had been making a little laundry list of people. He would do that for like a dinner party. He'd put the perfect guests together. He was always producing something, even if it was just a get together at his house, it had to be the right chemistry. And he's way into that. That's how he prepares for a session, has to be the right steel player. He was really brilliant like that. It meant a lot to him to have the right pieces in place. And then he didn't second guess himself on much either. When he made a decision like, no, that's going on the record, Oh man, I love that. I love that, man. I love that. You got to do that again. He would get excited and he would be very serious in the studio. But we learned a lot from Tony Brown, a guy who'd had 100 number one songs credited as a producer, pretty remarkable, amazing career. So that guy took us in, and really he kind of gave us free reins. He loved the way we sounded. He liked the songs, I'd written at the time, and he was very supportive. It wasn't a lot of restrictions or anything put on us. And we listened to outside material. We found a couple hits that way, but he was very encouraging.
He was fun to work with in the studio too, like Terry's saying, as far as working, because we all played and sang on these records. We had a few outside steel players and this and that come in and play on some tracks, like, unknown guys like Buddy Emmons and Mark O'Connor. That was the majority of us as the rhythm section. But, Tony was very hands-on as a producer. And I remember many times sitting with him at the console, just he and I'm not sure where the other guys were. I think comping a vocal or whatever. And, he was always very, what do you think of that? What do you think? Do you like that? And so I felt very involved with this guy that's, legendary producer at the time and the president of MCA Records. So we were in good company there, no doubt. And I definitely learned a lot from him in that way, especially. And like Terry said, his ability to put people together, he would say, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? I think it'd be really cool on this record, don't you? Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you say. But yeah, you couldn't help but agree because he was right. But it was in a very exciting time for sure.
Well, Billy, let me ask you. We talk about Tony, and Ray mentioned the instance 3-part harmonies you guys did at the beginning. Did you know you had something special at that time?
Yeah. The music came together so quick, like Ray said, 3 hours, and we had rehearsed these 5 songs. And then the vocal thing just kind of fell in, and then it just happened that I sing tenor, and then Ray is pretty much a natural baritone. He's got a great falsetto as well. So we started messing with these parts and just trying to hear the melodies and tighten them up. And it happened super quick also. It was very easy.
We've all met so much with other bands. It just happened that these 3 voices were 3 voices that just mixed really well together.
And I don't mean any disrespect for these 2 guys, but I don't remember it at all that way. I remember coming down I-40 and I picked them each up at a truck stop. Brought them to Nashville. I brought them to Nashville, showed them how the ropes of the whole system, introduced them to Tony Brown.
Yeah, that's the way I heard it.
And that's the way I remember, Jay. I'm sorry. That's it. That's the band right there.
That's what I heard.
We were sorry, Jay. Billy goes off like this. It's late. He has.
Do I need my medicine, Terry?
Yes.
Do I need my medicine again?
You obviously.
The hook comes down the side of the stage.
Billy.
Oh goodness!
He's a little delusional because he's just recovering from his 4 nights at the Ryman with Vince Gill, Jay.
Really crappy band too.
Vince
four nights, 4 hours a night, 4-hour show each night.
I didn't tell him to do that. That's for damn sure. You know that. So it was fun though.
That's awesome.
It was a fun hang.
Terry, you mentioned writing songs and being a songwriter, and I know you guys, Billy just said too, that you guys did 5 songs when you first met up with Tony. Were any of those originals?
Yeah, all of those.
They were all
originals.
Those
were all originals, and some that went on to be our first single, "Can I Count on You?"
Yeah,
was one of those songs. The title to our first album, "Burning Up the Road." That was one of them.
And actually, the very first single was "Every Step of the Way," right? Every Step of the way.
Yeah,
right?
And I think "Ain't No Big Deal" was one of them. Remember? That was.
Yes, that's right.
Those are all songs that we ended up recording. Jay, all of those went on that first record.
So those were that first meeting with Tony.
Yeah. That was that first meeting.
Well, let's talk about "Can I Count on You" for a second, because it's got great piano parts. It's very active on the piano, and it's got some cool guitar licks to it. Mm-hmm. How did that come about in the studio?
Well, the little demos we had pieces and parts of some of that song, and then we just sort of borrowed from what we could. I mean, Stephen Bruton played some really cool licks, and then we just sort of made them our own. Whatever we liked, we kept. Whatever we didn't have, we kind of created on the spot, which is just the way it is in the studio. Yeah, that came together pretty quickly. We kind of stuck to those demos in the beginning because that's all we had. Like Burning Up the Road. I know that guitar part was kind of cool, and Ray, jumped on that. We created that feel, and we probably changed some tempos and did some things and tweaked a few things, but those first 5 or 6 are basically, that was sort of the building blocks of the band. Yeah, for sure. Then we grew from there. Once we had that album, then we realized, well, we were put together as all these guys are such great players. They're going to be killer players. It was all about our musicianship, but we had no idea that we were going to have this harmony blend. We were just going to work these songs up and put a harmony part somewhere, but it turned into a whole different animal after we released Can I Count on You, and those harmonies were so out front and a big part of our sound moving forward. So it was all about finding and writing songs that could complement that moving forward. People don't care how great you play. There are a lot of great players out there, but if you've got something unique as a singer, which happened to be these vocal blend that we had, like this family harmony thing, then all of a sudden we had our own identity a little bit. We didn't sound like everybody else, and we didn't have to just jump up and down and try to tell everybody what great players we were. That was never going to get us anywhere, but a good song and the harmony, and it really started to connect with the listeners for sure.
And it had a 4-piece band vibe about it, which it was. It was really a 4-piece band on those records. I think the only thing I overdubbed was acoustic guitar and maybe some piano on that first record, especially. And
Matt Rawlings, Jay, that's Matt playing piano, and Can I Count on You? And
Tony's got a huge musical background. I mean, what kind of influence did he have on those players when went in the studio?
Same.
Well, yeah. He said, "Hey, man, this is cool. Listen to this guy. He's got blues, and he's doing kind of twangy Texas stuff. He's got this blues going on." And I heard it immediately, and I went, "There's a whole thing here that I was just kind of getting turned on to." Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimmy Vaughan, right. All of those. It started happening. It was a big growing period for me because I had just moved to Nashville that year, '87. There was a whole thing that both Ray and Terry, come to find out, had been listening to this, ZZ Top, all of these early rock bands, and playing blues, but it had a country thing about it. And I thought, man, that stamp is just me, perfect. I can dig in and play drums to that. Yeah, but I'm saying, and then but when you guys turned me on to Stevie Ray Vaughan, I mean, basically the two of you did on the road out there. I just went, well, now I see where they're coming from. Their roots. He's not just Willie Nelson, you know what I'm saying? Or he's not just Lyle. We started talking about, diversity and influences.
Yeah.
So you're in the studio and you're putting these tracks together. I mean, you mentioned drums just there. The drums have a very special feel to them, especially on some of these earlier tracks you're discussing, where a lot of times they start off a little broken down and then they build up as the song goes on. Yeah. And I think even in one of the songs, trying to remember the title of it, but one of the songs had that cross stick action, but it sounded almost like a wooden block.
Well, that was myself and a guy named Chuck Ainley, who engineered a couple of those.
Chuck Ainley's awesome.
Up front. And we started experimenting. When I was playing on Hillbilly Rock, we started experimenting with an auxiliary snare drum. And like you would use a, what do you call them, sample nowadays.
Yep.
I actually used an acoustic drum and put it off to my left side. And I would reach over and play that drum. And I said, Chuck, if I use this on my left side, it would give you a discrete channel with a discrete sound. You could affect that however you wanted to. He loved it. He thought it was great. So that's the answer to that particular sound that
Yeah, that was going out of my mind.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good ears, Jay. That's exactly. So Billy had a separate mic'd snare just for that sort of sound, that cross stick thing. as opposed to the open snare he would have with the kit, Yeah, we had Chuck Ainley, who's an amazing engineer, on our very first album,
Yep.
So you go from Tony Brown producing with Chuck Ainley as your engineer.
That's it.
So you had the
It
B
all
team.
just
I
fell
got
in,
it.
the A team fell into place,
That was our first recording, our very first album. Yeah, it was so fantastic. And that little sound stage, backstage, they called it back then, that little
My
room was so
goodness.
cool.
Chuck's room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
His SSL in the back room there.
That's it. And Tony worked in there a lot. And Jimmy Bowen would be in the next big room with his driver out back. He'd have his driver in his car waiting, and he'd be finishing up those George Strait records or whatever back in the day, early when he was still working and running labels and things. It was an amazing time, man. We spent a lot of time because we were just all giddy about, whoa, look what we're getting to do, and look who we're getting to do it with, and I hope I don't screw this up.
Some of the best of the best.
Oh, it was just amazing. And we'd all been exposed to some cool stuff, but having an opportunity like that, going from, players and touring with other people, and all of a sudden having a chance to maybe come together and do your own thing, we realized how fortunate we were at that particular time to be working with Tony. I had to pinch myself, really. I mean, I remember Tony went on a trip one time. He's like, hey, man, because I was coming to Nashville and just staying a lot. I was writing a lot. Guy Clark, and oh my gosh, it was mind-blowing, And I was staying in hotels or with our manager later. And Tony's like, hey, man, come pick me up. I want you to take me to the airport. I'm going to be gone for 3 days. And you just keep my car. He had some brand new, beautiful Mercedes sedan, And oh, my God. I dropped him off at the airport. Of course, then I immediately went out and did donuts in the parking lot with it. But I mean, that's what he gets.
So you were the one.
Yeah,
I got
right.
it.
Yeah.
But it was mind blowing. I realized my life was no longer what it used to be. It was all these things. Hanging out with Tony and having dinners with, showing up to write with people I had read their names 100 times in my dad's Billboard magazine. Growing up, and here was Harlan Howard, and it was Costas, it was Guy Clark. It was like, oh my God, it was a lot. It was stressful because I knew it was an opportunity there, and I just didn't want to disappoint anybody, especially myself. I really wanted to. And I'll be darned if we didn't, hit a couple good licks and end up doing some cool stuff that we're still proud of, still playing those songs 35 years later,
Great songs. You mentioned soundstage, and you talk about the driver in the back. Obviously, soundstage, big studio. You can walk in the front door most of the time, but Chuck Ainley's room was at the back.
Yeah.
And I used to teach at the engineering school behind, so we faced the parking lot.
Yeah.
And we watch everybody come in and out of that back door all day
No,
long.
really?
That's funny.
So cool.
It was very cool, the things you'd
I
see.
think that's still there, Jay. I think it's going strong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the Musicians Union, and
Yep, right next
then
to
it
it.
used to be Arista Records back there. And one night I had my Super Sport Chevelle. We were in there recording, and it was raining a little bit. And I had this 454 Cal induction, and so I burned the tires off of it. It almost ran right through the Arista building in my muscle car.
Nice.
Oh, it was shocking. Even behind the wheel, I went, uh-oh, having so much fun right up until I wasn't. But
That studio definitely put out some major records, that little studio there, the soundstage. That's where we recorded our first record. That's where we recorded Lyle's Pontiac record as well.
Was Chuck involved in that too?
Yeah, Chuck did. I think he did do that one. Yeah, I
what
believe.
about you, Billy? Did you cut that Marty Stewart stuff there too?
yes. Yeah, cut that
I
too.
thought you did. Yeah.
Cut some of the Vince vocals there. Yeah, it was.
We were a small
well-known.
band, so that little
Yeah.
room was perfect. We just set up in that little tracking room, and
Yeah.
then we would add piano if we needed, or maybe track live with it, But Matt was kind of our buddy at the time anyway. It was fun having him involved too. And
All these years later, here we are. Well, Chuck isn't in that back studio any longer. However, right prior to COVID, we recorded Lyle's latest record in that same room. So, it's expanded. And for Lyle's record, we had like a 14-piece band in there, so.
Oh, man.
I should say crammed in there.
Right.
Back in the day, you could only get about 5 pieces at a time.
How did you fit 14?
So we used the kitchen for the horns. My guitar out in the extra room out there.
Oh,
and
wow.
They expanded the drum room, so Lyle was in his own drum room. Paul Franklin, Sam Bush, Stuart Duncan, Jim Cox, and Victor Krause, and I, and Dean Parks were all in the kind of in the same room recording. So it was a big band. But that studio has changed over the years. But it was cool to be back in there again and do another record.
Yeah, I was just there this week doing some work. Billy's doing some work. We used Chuck Ainley. We released an EP last year, Jay. We used Chuck tracked the very first tracks for our, sort of comeback record, and we cut that at Peter Frampton's studio. So that was a thrill and a lot of fun, and something cool we got to do coming, full circle with Chuck all these years later. Our first album and our sort of
That's awesome.
record kind of get us started again. It was really cool. And
You cut Amarillo Sky, didn't you?
we cut that with Matt Rawlings at his studio out in Franklin. Yeah, but in the beginning, that's part of our EP that's coming out, the live EP. Yeah, Amarillo Sky, No More Crying those are the first two singles from the upcoming EP.
We're bringing them back, Jay. They're coming back.
There you go.
They're bringing all these memories back. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, but it keeps circling back around, like they're both mentioning, and here we are. I'm going to work with Matt Roby tomorrow, singing backgrounds to try and tie up my part. Everything's done,
Individually.
away from one another anymore.
Right.
It's with technology, we can do it. So
But
we'll
living
mail
in-
that off to Ray and he'll tidy his parts up, and Bruce Boughton will get his on as well. So
Living in Nashville, that's the beauty of having
it's
studios,
pretty amazing.
people to help you. It's always been a
Do you guys ever find yourself in the same room anymore?
Yeah, actually, with Chuck, when we tracked together. Yeah,
We prefer
the
that.
three of us are there always. So
But for this live record, because I'm out here in Arizona, and we recorded it at my club here in Scottsdale, Handlebar J, which is something my family's owned for 50 years. And the guys that come out over the years to play, and they came out recently, and we recorded these songs on a, believe it or not, an Allen and Heath SQ5 board that's just got a great multi-track recording processor in it. And this stuff sounded so good, we were like, man, we should just work on this stuff. And, sort of with the magic of the studio, you can go in there and, of course, tweak things that you didn't, if you didn't sing this part exactly right, you can fix it.
We had a couple things that bled over.
The beauty is being able, in today's technology, as you well know, I can do things here, and Billy and Terry can do things in Nashville.
yeah,
And we're touring. We get to spend a lot of time together, so that's what we make up for it. Once we get on the road, we're pretty much nonstop as far as our traveling and performing. So we still enjoy getting out on the road together. We still enjoy being together and still cutting up and laughing and having fun like we did 30-something years ago. That's never really...
Go out there and play the music and laugh a lot.
Nice. There should be no laughing involved.
you were looking for tidbits from us. I was trying to. I was telling actually a bass player that I worked with for 4 nights straight, Jimmy Lee Sloas, the story about us being in Burbank, and Tony Harrell, by the way, Terry, who said hello. And I was telling them about us being in Burbank and jaywalking.
Yeah.
And the cops pulling us over right at NBC and going, you were walking on the red hand. You were walking and
not at the crosswalk. We were jaywalking. Yeah.
Right.
So.
And so he said, you're not going to be laughing about this later when you get this ticket in the mail.
Yeah.
It was like expensive back then.
That was the ACM Awards. We were out there
that's
for some
right.
press.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we know, it was like 4 or 5 cops. So for jaywalk, I was like, oh my God, they're taking this jaywalking.
Take that a little serious.
All on bicycles. It couldn't have been more humorous. Here they are on bicycles trying to hold us,
That was back in like 2002 or something. So that fine was steep back then. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
A lot of severe crime going on out there at jaywalking. They're cracking down on it.
So they turned their back and we were going, woo, big law enforcement.
Yeah, we're trying to joke around about it. We thought, are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very serious about it.
Yeah.
No.
That's too funny.
Brother.
Terry, you mentioned going on the road, and I want to talk about that here in a second. But before I do, what are you guys looking forward to most about the EP itself?
I guess the fact that people will really, the people who have heard us live know what the potential of the band is. But for those who don't, I think that they'll understand what they're getting live from us. And we had so many, not only musicians, but fans that came aboard because they went, how do you guys get this sound? There's only 4 of you on stage. Or for the majority of the time we were together, it was only 4 of us. And I think it's because the vocals blend so well and because we all worked out those parts and we all stick with them and we're all sincere about what we do with the arrangements. They haven't really changed too much. We've added some stuff and you know what I'm saying, on the front or back or something like that, but not.
Right.
So it's a live show, and we pride ourselves in really rocking hard with country music.
What I was going to say earlier when you brought up Can I Count on You and we were rehearsing in the studio to begin with this band is, we released a couple singles that were more up-tempo songs, and they didn't, for whatever the reason at the time, they just didn't connect on country radio. Like Felicia. Yeah. And maybe
Every Step of the Way.
Every Step of the Way, right. And they didn't connect with the crowd. So when they released Can I Count on You, it did. And they were like, And so next thing you know, almost with exception of Love on the Loose, I think pretty much all those singles were ballads. And I think the harmonies lend themselves really well to that stuff too. So that accentuated the harmonies. But we are also a rockin' band. So I was just going to say with this live EP, I think it kind of shows the rockin' side of this band as well.
Yeah.
As the ballad side. So
it shows a little bit of muscle that we always had. That's what fans always commented on. It's like, wow, you guys are totally different live because they just do those hits.
That's rock.
And those videos from CMT back in the day, it was great. I mean, we were having success at radio, but there was another side of us that we enjoyed. And you have to have that in order to just, 90 minutes of, ballads are great. I love them, but you have to mix it up a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah. And so we start our show with Burning Up the Road, which was on our first album. We end our show with a song called Cream of the Crop, which we all love. The fans are, we don't end up, most of the time, we do it as an encore. And right before that, we do this song called Just One Night, which is usually the show closer for that. And that's the epitome of big harmony ballad that we go to this rockin' thing. So it's a well worked out show, and I think that's what we hope to portray when we get out there.
How does it feel to be back on the road?
It's kind of like picking up right where we left off, really. We don't have the big tour bus anymore. That's the biggest change. But, these days, that type of touring has completely changed. If you don't have a 12-month lease on a bus, then you're not going to get a bus, or you're going to get a leftover bus. Then you're going to be on socials broken down on the side of the road in a bus. I see that a lot. So unless you're big time on a tour that can, support that sort of overhead, there's no way for us to do it. We're hand picking good shows. We're not into filling our calendar up just to be on the road. We don't want to do everything. We want to do some good gigs and some things that make sense. Most of what we do goes back into our company so we can continue to tour, record, promote. That's where we're at right now. We've all made a conscious effort to focus on how we want to operate and how we want to do things. And, the shows are getting a little better and all that stuff is good like we hope. And, moving forward, we'll see what happens. But, this year was good. We did some interesting festivals and fairs and still have some more coming. We have some hard ticket venues that we're selling well, and that's great to see. And we've got a couple of those coming up, and so it's a mixed bag, but it's good stuff. So we fly, we send a big box truck, we have our front of house, our crew guy that also does tour managing, and it's lean and mean, 4-piece band.
It's got to be a little easier to travel like that, isn't it?
So much.
Yeah.
The routing is great. We land, we
Yeah.
get a Suburban. It holds all of us and Bruce Boughton, our steel player. We head on, we get to the room, we go back and forth. The next day we usually get some sleep. We drive whatever to the next date. We laugh and cut up along the way or talk about our songs, our set, that sort of thing a lot too.
Prop and
And then
Bucky.
stop at Bucky's a couple of times.
Of course.
A steel player, we give him crap. First time he ever saw one, he went in and bought like 17 pounds of jerky.
Yeah.
And
That's what you do.
Yeah.
The place is like its own city.
Oh my
It
God.
is.
He
It
regrets it. He regrets that he did it. So now we beat him up. We remind him they're having like jerky special today, whatever, every time we go. But it's,
Armadillo jerky. Yeah, that's what he
Well,
needs.
tell
He
me
needs
about
more of
that. You guys bust each other's cookies when you're on the road?
oh, come on.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
Jay,
Tell me your
we're-
favorite story.
No.
We're a milder form of what we used to do. We got away with murder back then because there was no iPhone,
Right. No,
There was no way to document all of our nakedness that we were doing and we thought was so funny,
That might be a good thing.
Our phone back then, Billy'd have his own X-rated channel by now.
Oh my gosh! You'd have to just put a bar over the whole video. Yeah, you
You
couldn't
see,
even
I
show
don't have to
anything.
say anything, Jay. Listen to
What-
this.
You don't
One
have
of
to
our
say
one of
You
our
just gotta-
favorite one of our favorite memories. This was in Sweetwater, Texas, and we're pulling pranks on each other, going back and forth, and we're at sort of a little mom and pop motel, going to play this radio thing that night, and so we can hear Billy in there in the shower. He's like singing his harmony part to whatever, one of our songs or something, and we filled up an entire trash can full of ice water, of course, and we dumped it on his head while he's in there. So he just bolts out of the shower, chases us into the hallway, and then we lock him out into the hallway. He's out there.
And then
Behind the machine.
And then what happened, Billy?
so I'm in the hallway, and there's one soda machine in the hallway, and I try and lodge myself into a corner of that to keep
Because
myself.
a family
and lo
was
and
coming.
behold, a family comes. A family. And there I am, completely trying to just pry. I'm still, every bit of me sticking out. So
Billy. Billy, I think you won't.
Did they recognize you?
No, they didn't recognize me. Thank goodness.
It looks like the guy McBride The Ride, but more pale. He looks more pale.
So there's two parts to this story.
You can defend yourself. Go ahead.
Oh man! And so they give me a towel. I go back in. We
family-
laugh.
the
It's
family
a
gave
big
you
time.
Give me a towel.
We end up. We
Yes.
have to go
Hey,
home
Billy,
back to
Billy.
Nashville. No. Go on.
No,
I've got. You gave me
left out-
this.
Come on, Terry. You had your moment.
You left out the family gave you the towel.
The family gave me the towel. That's right. They did. Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
no.
we do our little radio tour at that time, and then we have to go home. Well, we're gonna go on TNN on the Ralph Emery show. Yeah. And so we're all three sitting there in a panel, and he's talking, and he goes, "Whoa, Billy, I hear you were caught naked in a hotel hallway in Texas." And I'm going, who in the hell put these guys up to this? Who to have Ralph Emery ask me this?
Oh.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, all
television-
exposed. So that the
television
gift
gold.
kept giving. Yeah.
Television
gift-
gold, Billy. Gold.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
So-
you said your wife didn't even know the story that she saw it on television.
Yeah. Oh, I have to hear that on Ralph Emery show.
There you go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That was crazy.
So good.
All right, Terry, as we talk about that, can you tell me what a shiitake mushroom is?
Oh man, where did you hear that story? at?
Oh,
I have my
God.
sources.
You do have some deep sources. That's interesting. That would almost be like a Brooks and Dunn connection. Is that where that comes from? What is it? Ray, your kettle is.
I'll tell you here, but go ahead with your story first.
Yeah, that stems from my motorcycle wreck back in the day. and an injury that I was in a head-on motorcycle wreck. Typical motorcycle wreck. Someone didn't see me, of course, and pulled right out in front of me. So ended up in the trauma center, and it's a place you don't want to be. It was like me, a young Amish kid had been run over by a wagon. I mean, that's the kind of people you're in the trauma center with. So it was, anyway, I'd lost a lot of blood during that. I did a lot of internal damage, had a lot of problems, broken bones and shoulders, and my kidney was bleeding out inside, which was painful and a little scary. But I had no idea the effect it had on the rest of my body. So anyway, I had to have a catheter, they told me, which I never had before. So this beautiful nurse is wanting to, she asked me, I can do it or I can have a male nurse do it. I'm hooked up. I've got broken fingers. I'm hooked up here. I've got morphine going in me. My wife is here. The preacher from my little country church, I don't know if he was there to say the last rites or what over me, but he was there. And so when she left the room, I thought, oh no, she's going to come back and, have to deal with me, and I hadn't even thought about any of my personal areas other than what I could see, So anyway, I kind of got my gown opened a little bit, and to my dismay and shock and horror, my certain parts of me were smaller than I'd ever seen it before. And so I likened it to a shiitake mushroom because, so here I am, all of a sudden, my monitor starts going off, my blood pressure, I'm about to stroke out. I'm so shocked at what I'm seeing. And my wife is like, that nurse doesn't care. And I said, no, but I do.
Right.
This hurts worse than my lacerated kidney at the moment. It's like, so yeah, that was
oh, mercy.
I'm
almost sorry I asked.
Well, and I kept it very PG. Usually I can go into great detail, but I was trying to think of some way to get the story out there, but yet spare a few people.
All right, Ray, your turn. What's your wildest story from the road?
Oh, boy. Well, probably the ones that I can't remember are the ones that are the wildest. I just remember we drank a bit more than we probably needed to in those years. And
not all of us drank a lot back then.
Yeah.
No, Terry didn't drink at that time.
I was a sober guy.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, Jay, but I do remember one that always comes around to haunt me quite often, even to this day, is I got I'd had a few shots of tequila, I believe, in Myrtle Beach at the Beach Wagon. They served their alcohol in those little airline bottles. And so I remember we left there with, 20 airline bottles of Jose Cuervo, and you start drinking them, they go down like water. Next thing you know, I said something to Terry about a girl came up at that time, and I started to say, Terry, that'll never work. And it came out, that'll naddle. And he picked right up on it, and it became that'll naddle, faddle, waddle, paddle, daddle.
Yeah.
You just lose all sense of tongue ability after so many shots of Jose Cuervo.
We still use that, Jay. We're still calling naddle, faddle, daddle. But these guys, they had a couple shots one night, and we all decided it'd be a great idea to bungee jump after this this fair date that we just played. I'm the only guy that hadn't been drinking, so. But I would do all the filming back in the day. I have some amazing footage on the bus.
Oh, yeah, he does. Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, some incredible stuff. Us out with Billy Ray Cyrus and 80,000 people. I mean, that whole little jump and just all kinds of stuff, and all kind of fun things on the bus. And we had a lot of fun back in the day. Well documented now.
Yeah, he was the nicest guy.
Billy Ray.
Yeah.
Still is. He's just such a nice guy.
He would also catch people at the wrong times. I was sick after a gig, and I said, "You got to stop the bus. I can't use the bathroom on the bus. So the driver said, we'll go around. We're pulling a trailer. Go around and do your business between the bus and the trailer. There I am, Jay. I'm squatting, and around the corner comes these two, and all I see is a light. All I see is a video light, and I'm just
Jay, I used a nice sepia tone that night too. It was really good.
Just send me the footage, Terry, and we'll put it up with the show.
It's
cut it in B-roll.
Can you edit that in a little bit in between? So Billy talking and then.
So he thinks he's a cinematographer now. You know what I'm saying? So there's the label.
Well,
that goes
Billy,
along
I'm
with that.
still
Just be glad he didn't have the iPhone. That's all.
Still looking for
We had wonderful times. We had some great employees as well, and some of those guys got caught in the crossfire as well. So.
We were going down the road early one morning, Jay. We had this cool bus. It used to be the Judd's bus, and then our manager and Florida coach, they painted it. We got this big double axle trailer. We painted it the same color as our bus, like it's sort of theme, this stripe thing that went all the way through. It was so cool. We were like, oh my God, we got our eagle out here. We got our trailer. And so I got up early that morning for some reason. I never did sleep well back then. So got up, and our merch guy, Mike, my old high school buddy, he was the relief driver. So he just sat down. Sun's coming up. He's going to drive for a while. The driver went to the bunk. I'm just sitting there in the wheel well talking. And then all of a sudden he goes, trailer's off. And I went, what? He went, the trailer's off. So the trailer had come off of the ball, broke the chains, and now it's flying right down the interstate right alongside us. And we slowed down and watched it. It went for a mile or two. It just kept on going. It was so balanced. It just rode for a long time. It's passed us. We got behind it. It slowly went to the side, got to the, to the shoulder, got down into the ditch, and then the tongue hit, and the whole thing flipped over and kind of cracked open. When we managed to salvage everything, but
did you lose your gear?
No, it was packed so tightly that it really a couple cases came apart, but a local fire department came and helped us load everything back into our bus, and then we left that trailer. We never saw it again. That's the last time. We just left it on the side of the road. Somebody came and picked it up later, but that was it for us.
Well, Billy, you mentioned the crew and your team, and we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we take a moment to shine the light on somebody who works behind the scenes or somebody who may have supported you along the way. Do you guys have anybody you'd like to shine a little light on?
One of the guys I was referring to was a guy named Tommy Hensley. And he came aboard soon after we were together and spent a lot of years out there with us. And he's just one of those solid people that you could depend on, not only to mix a good show. He had been mixing for the Gatlin brothers, so he understood harmony and how to position that in a mix. And he was also he was a decent road manager and just a fun loving guy. So he fit really well. So he was out there a long time with us.
Ray, how about you?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Tommy, but we had some great guys at the time. We had John Medellin, it was a lean and mean crew, just like we have now. Our guy now, Lee Weaver, he lives in Texas, and we met him years and years ago and got reacquainted with him a couple years ago when we did a show out that way. And so he's become our sound guy, but he does everything. He does front of house. He gets the stage organized, and he's just one of those guys that you can count on. You got to have at least one guy like that on your team, or it can be a real nightmare out there. And Lee, for us, is that now, I think. Yeah. Especially. And we have Dominic as well. And Dominic's a great kid, and he does a lot for us. Terry can tell you about Dom.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys, we're fortunate to have some. I mean, Lee's the kind of guy, he doesn't bring anything to us other than it's all going to be good. It's all going to work. Sounds good. He just makes it all happen. If there is a problem, we never know about it. He just takes care of it, keeps us out of that. Other people like to bring you right into their misery. Oh my God, on the road.
Right.
It can be a long day with people like that. He just goes quietly, goes along and gets everything done. And then at the end of the night, everybody comments on, how good it sounds out front. And it's just because he's doing his job. He does a great job. And then we have a young guy that's a Belmont grad who sort of specializes in social media, but also can do some, PR, management, whatever. He's wears a lot of hats, which when you're, small crew, you got to have people like that. He'll jump in and drive the box truck. He'll do whatever, and get us where we're going. And we try to take care of the few people that we do have because we want them to know that we appreciate them. And same goes with Bruce Boughton. He's our fourth member. He works as hard as we do. He really does. He wants it to be good. He takes a lot of pride in how he comes off sounding on stage, and it's important to him after all these years, just like it is for us. So, yeah, we're very fortunate to have the crew that we do. With no more people than we have, we get a lot done.
A big thanks to Terry, Ray, and Billy for taking the time to share their stories with us. And as always, thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you know anyone that would enjoy this episode, please be sure to pass it along. You can do that and find the links to everything mentioned over at jfranzi.com/episode 87. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franzi Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranzi.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.